In this video, we will review the DAX Calendar and CalendarAuto function. So for the calendar function, it returns a table with a single column named date with a continuous set of dates. The range of dates is from a specified start date and a specified end date, including the start and end dates. So time intelligence reporting requires a date or a calendar table. So this becomes an important thing to use when you're doing time intelligence reporting. The syntax for calendar is calendar, start date, and end date. So we're going to create a new calendar table. So to do that, we're just going to create a table and call it calendar. And the calendar is going to be equal to the calendar function and then our start date. So we're going to use date. And for the date, we're going to add in 2019, the 1st of 2019. Then next we have a comma, end date. And for the end date, we're going to use just the end of the year. So 2019, 12/31. We close that and close our function. And now we have a calendar date. And so we're just going to go over here. And you can see now we have a full table with the dates from the first day of January 2019 to the last day of December 2019. And so also we can then, for this table, for time intelligence, we can add columns. So for example, we could add a month column. And we would format the calendar date. And we would format that as month. So we're going to use full month. And we need double quotes, sorry. So we're going to close that and then enter. And so now you see we have months down the line. So you can add, whatever it's appropriate. You can add year and date, week, for example. So we can also add a calendar based on a query. So over here I have a query that I built. And so now we're going to go back and add a new table. And we'll just call it a new table. And we're just going to call that calendar 2 equal to calendar and calendar function. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use a column from our data set. So in the query, we have order date. So we're going to just choose order date, and that'll be our first date, start date, and then comma, max. And we're going to use order date again. And we're going to close that function. And so now we have another table over here, and it contains the date column, and it's using the order date from that query I have, from the first date to the last date. So the first order date was November 12th, 2013, and the last order date was June 30th, 2014, according to this query I have. So anyone who's been reporting for a while will love this function because a lot of times this is an issue. So again, you can use it just to build your own hard-coded data set of dates, or you can use a query. Another thing you can do with calendar is you can have nested start and end dates. So we can have multiple start and end dates. What we're going to do here is we're going to add another min nested function, and we're going to add another date also here. So it's going to evaluate both. And so the other date we're going to add in here is ship date. So we want the minimum between order date and ship date for the minimum, and we want the maximum between order date and ship date for the maximum. So whichever one is max or min, whichever one is max or min is what we're going to use, is what is going to be captured. So we're going to have ship date here also. We just need to add one more over here, and enter. And for this data set, it's not truly a great data set because okay, yep. So before we had to June 30th, and now we have until July 7th because the maximum ship date is the 7th. So you can see we're including this ship, the minimum date we had to order, and the maximum date we had something shipped out. So that's just another separate trick you can use with calendar. So we'll move on to CalendarAuto. And so we're going to, in this example, we're going to use CalendarAuto. And CalendarAuto creates calendar table based on your database content. And the option is to add in the month. So let's create a query. So here I have the VentureWorks data warehouse data. I have account, currency, and customer and date dimensions. So we're going to create a new table. And we're just going to call it calendar. And so we're going to do CalendarAuto. And so CalendarAuto is just asking for your fiscal year and month. So it will start with the date. It will start with the month after the number you add in. So I want mine to start with July. So I'm going to add in 6 for June. And I'm going to close it and click enter. And so now you see it starts with July. But here you see we're starting with July 1915, which is probably way too much data, right? So we have July 1915 until June 30th, 2015. So you have to be cautious when you're using CalendarAuto because sometimes you can get data that's this has too much data. It's not pertaining to the data you want to actually measure. And so here, the reason for that is we have this customer table here. So the customer table most likely has someone who was born a while ago. So we need to get rid of their birth date, in order to have a more relevant calendar data set or table. So if I just go here and I delete this customer table, you see now that we have dates going back to 2004, which would probably make it more sense for the data you want to measure for the business. So when you're using Calendar Auto, you want to be careful if you're just pulling in, your whole database. It's probably safer to use queries and use Calendar, but just to be aware if you have a smaller data set that probably doesn't have any outliers for dates, you can use Calendar Auto also. And so that's it for Calendar and Calendar Auto.